We're laid back. It's good vibes. We're by the ocean.
You're in the Midwest, man. It's good vibes. Well, I don't know. Chris Jones and Travis Kelce may not be the best of vibes right now in Kansas
We
City.
don't get a slow news week. There was no way to ease into this game. We couldn't have just taken it easy. They just dropped us right into the thick of things.
Man, you were at Ronald McDonald House today.
Let me get this tweet out real quick
Oh
before.
yeah, let me do that too.
Are you on the laptop today, or what's your situation? Yeah,
Bro, I had one bad day. You just not gonna let that go.
look, Mark. Some people have to hold you accountable, right? You're so used to just tweeting things with no repercussion, and just moving off one thing, just saying it and moving on to the next thing. Nah, here on Coast to Coast, we hold you accountable.
That's fine. That's fine. I had one bad day out of what 50 something shows.
This is episode 54 today. The old Nick Bolton, not the new Nick Bolton. This is the old Nick Bolton.
Isn't Leo Chanel 54? I
That
believe he is.
sounds right. I know
Yeah.
we used to do like one player for every. I think it's Chanel.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Okay, tap in with us here on Chiefs Coast to Coast. Just sent that out. It's episode 54. Aaron Ladd here in Kansas City. Mark Gunnels is in LA. Kramer Sandstone is behind the board with no Serta leading up to week 1. We are previewing, obviously, that matchup. The latest on Chris Jones, the latest on Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce. Mark Gunnels has already done all his tabulating of the best picks and plays for this week. So, of course, we'll go to Vegas as we do every week on this program as we lead up to week 1. And, of course, we'll preview the Lions' offensive attack. The last time the Chiefs matched up with Jared Goff, it was a highlight affair with a lot of points. Does this game have the same thing in store for the Kansas City Chiefs? All that and more on episode 54. But of course, we want to make sure that you're checking out the Arrowhead Pride Premier tab, the newsletter 2 times a week. It's a brand new feature on arrowheadpride.com. Some exclusive information, inside information coming from the one and only Pete Sweeney there. Make sure that you're subscribed to that for all of your diehard Chiefs information. Goes more in depth than just the usual fan. I believe that is something that every Chiefs fan could benefit from. If you want to be part of our show, we love making y'all part of the show. Already got one person chiming in with us on the YouTube, but if you want to leave a voicemail for us, 816-514-1267 is our voicemail line. Hashtag C2C if you're following with us on X or Twitter or whatever.
It's X, man.
It's X. You fully made the change. You're X now.
I'm all in now. It's X.
I think it's funny that, like, when I say, "Oh, Mark posted this on X," that sounds like almost like a drug. It sounds like a drug. Like, it's still not settling in for me. But yes, we do this show every Wednesdays at 6 on X. I don't do it on X. Mark does. Mark does it on X.
Oh my gosh. Let's move on.
Having some fun here headed into week 1. Biggest story of the day, man. And as you mentioned, I was at Ronald McDonald House earlier today. Chris Jones breaks his silence after this long, drawn-out contract conundrum. Still no conclusion, but maybe a little more insight from the man himself. Let's get your thoughts first, and then we'll have a soundbite from Chris Jones. Just very generally, Mark, do you think that Chris Jones helped or hurt his case with some of the comments that we saw or heard today outside the Ronald McDonald House?
I'm gonna say hurt, only because the fact that you say anything during negotiations, I don't think is a good thing. I think it's better to kind of do a no comment situation especially when you're in the midst of it like this, and it's been a lot of back and forth, and it doesn't seem like it's really either side is moving. So I don't know. I don't think it's a win here at all. I think maybe it helps some Chiefs fans feel a little bit better. Maybe the fact that, he's talking about how he still wants to be a Chief for life, and, he's not being a distraction. He's talking to his teammates still, things of that nature. So maybe it's a feel good moment for some Chiefs Kingdom fans. He's obviously doing things for the community out there in Kansas City. But as far as the negotiation goes, I don't think, when I say hurt, I'm not really saying that like, oh, it's over now. Like, there's no chance that this deal gets done, but I don't see how it could help.
First time we heard from Chris Jones, or first time he took questions since, I believe, the post-game podium and maybe some of the celebration stuff that we saw after the Super Bowl. We'll just call it February. First time Chris Jones was at a lectern since February. Here's part of what he had to say, kind of talking about this ongoing contract situation between him and the Chiefs front office. Check this out.
Are like buttholes. Everybody got them and they all stink, right? So, there's some gonna like it, some gonna respect it, and some is gonna dislike it. That's just the way it is. You can't make everybody happy, unfortunately. As much as you try to do and as much as you try to appease people, you're not gonna make everyone happy. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. And I'm just asking for a raise.
Chris Jones talked for about 7.5 minutes outside the Ronald McDonald House. Handed out some Big Macs, took a bunch of photos. I saw him take endless autographs and spend a lot of time with the families there. And I want to make sure that we touch on that because I think that's the real important part here, Mark. I felt real nasty, gross, talking about millions of dollars and people arguing between, this kind of contract situation in the backdrop of, real serious life things that are happening. We're talking about families with kids who are battling cancer. I just hated for them to kind of be thrown in the middle or almost used in this situation for Chris Jones to get his point off or maybe break his silence as far as the contract negotiation is concerned. What he actually had to say kind of stuck to script. I mean, in my opinion, his representation has kind of gone on the offensive the last few days. We saw the numbers kind of come out reportedly through Mike Florio and Pro Football Talk on what the offer was. And now we get Chris Jones a day before the regular season starts, kind of saying and reiterating his desire to stay here in Kansas City, but want to do it at the right price. I don't know if he necessarily hurt himself. I think if he would have done this prior to doing any of the social media stuff, maybe he has more of a support, or the court of public opinion is more so in his favor. But I felt like the stuff we saw on social media, the teasing the week 8 and talking about, I can afford it and kind of doing all that kind of took kind of the flair, in my opinion, out of what today was.
Yeah, I agree. And, I commend you for being there and having to do that during a tough situation, obviously. You took over. You were all over my timeline today. I saw Aaron Ladd quotes everywhere. You and Nate Taylor, you guys were definitely on that for sure. But yeah, I think like you said, it's the damage kind of already been done with all the cryptic stuff on social media. It seems like it was a slap in the face to a lot of fans, took it personal. And I think that's why, you see him reiterating once again that his goal is to be a Kansas City Chief for life. And, he says it all humbly, right? Like, I'm just want to raise. Like, I just want to raise. Like, how, me and you probably want to raise and things that we do, right? So I think, and I think everybody can relate to that as well, So it's just different when he's talking about millions, right? And people are like, well, you already got all this. Like, why do you need extra few million? And it's hard for the casual person to understand, but I think it comes down to a lot of self-value, I would say. Like, when you see guys getting paid more than you that you are objectively better than, and your resume says that, you want to get paid accordingly. It's not really about just penny pitching a couple $1,000,000 when you're already rich. It's just about, getting what you're worth. And you just won a Super Bowl, and you're universally known as the third best player on this team at worst, behind Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. And like I said before, if it was one of those guys, we wouldn't have got this far. If one of those guys was demanding more and really stood strong on it, they wouldn't have got to week 1, where we're less than 24 hours here recording on Wednesday, and you're still looking for a contract. So I think that's part of it as well. Chris Jones is seeing that, and he knows he's the face, the Patrick Mahomes, if you would, of the defense.
You don't think Patrick Mahomes would hold out and miss games?
No, he wouldn't. But it would never got to that point for us to find out anyway.
A lot of people in my comments today were like, oh, it's a PR stunt. Like, it's he's doing this intentionally right before. Well, yeah, I mean that's how you create leverage in a contract dispute. You try and enhance your value or get to the point to where your value is at its highest, or where the team realizes or is at an impasse to where they can no longer play without you. I want to spin this a little bit forward because we're at the point now to where we've been on this platform saying, oh, he's not going to miss games, to the point now to where we're kind of resigned about him not playing tomorrow. And I want to ask, going forward, how many games you think he could possibly miss? We talked about this on the Arrowhead Pride Takeover Day on 610 Radio here locally. CDOT, Pete Sweeney, and I tossed around 3.5 as the number for how many games Chris Jones potentially misses. And I want to throw one more nugget in here before I get your opinion. 3.5 is the number we're talking over under potentially how many games Chris Jones misses. And the new information is another blockbuster deal that happens along the D line for San Francisco 49er Nick Bosa. Blockbuster deal, highest paid player, defensive player in NFL history, according to Adam Schefter. 5 years, $170 million extension with 122.5 of it guaranteed. Does that impact how you see the negotiations going? And then maybe the 3.5 number, what your answer is on that?
Yeah, to answer the Nick Bosa part of this, I think that has no impact on this at all. First of all, he's the edge rusher. Those guys are valued a little bit more than guys in the middle. And the main thing is he's only 25 years old.
The age.
I mean, this is a guy that's still entering his prime. The Niners didn't have any leverage in that situation. They had to give him pretty much whatever he wanted for that reason. Chris Jones is about to turn 30 years old. The Chiefs still have leverage. I mean, if he sits out much longer, obviously the franchise tag can be impacted for next year, and he has to play games this year to accord a season or if that's not the case, then he's stuck, right? So he's gonna have to play at some point this year. It's just a matter of when. So I don't think that really matters for this situation. And to answer your question on how long do I think I'm sitting out, if you had to give you a week as of right now, I'm gonna say he comes back week 3 against the Bears, and this is why I say that. Here's my logic. I think the Chiefs are going to win the first 2 games.
Okay.
I think they're going to beat the Lions, and they're going to have a hard-fought game in Jacksonville, and they're going to win that game, start off 2-0. And now you're back at home. You're playing the Bears. If you're Chris Jones and the Katz brothers, you don't want this thing to get too far down the line where the Chiefs are winning too many games without you, and you're going to be clear-cut favorites to beat the Bears. So you don't want them to go 3-0. And then they're heading to the Jets against the hype Jets and Aaron Rodgers, head the 3-0 potentially. Do you really want to risk them going 4-0? And then if this thing keeps going on, you keep losing leverage. So I think you want to get in there as soon as you can, assuming they do get off to a quick 1-0, 2-0 start here. So that's my logic on that.
I think right along your lines is one of the questions that we got in from Facebook. Steve Klein Jr. asked, what do you think happens if the D-line balls out versus Detroit? Does that stall negotiations even further? In my opinion, and I'll take it first and you can go after that, I don't know if it necessarily impacts negotiations. I think when you're talking about signing Chris Jones to a long-term deal or an extension, you're thinking about the December, January, February games, right? Like you're thinking about him showing up when you're playing against Cincinnati at home in the AFC title game or Buffalo in the divisional round. Or, I mean, at this point, and this is how I view it, and I'm guessing this is how the Chiefs front office views it, it's going to take him a while to get into game shape anyway, Mark. Like, even if he comes back and plays in week 3, as you mentioned, against the Bears, I'm not expecting him to play a full allotment of the snaps. I'm not expecting him to be in football shape. I saw him today. It was right next to him. He's a big dude normally, but he looked to be in good shape. He talked about working out twice a day while he's down in Miami with his usual team. I don't know if, and another part of this question is, what do you classify as balling out? Are we classifying multiple sacks or classifying it as one key sack at the end of the game? Like, I don't know. I don't see a world in which, even if Kansas City gets, I mean, unless they go out there and get 12 sacks or something insane, I don't see a world in which Brett Veach leaves tomorrow's game saying, okay, we're in a good spot without Chris Jones. Like, we don't need him anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't think it really matters what the D-line does. I think as long as the Chiefs are still winning, I don't care if the score is 51-45, because the Chiefs historically under Spag start off slow defensively anyway. Yeah. Like, let's not act like this is not a thing. So even with Chris Jones, during the first 7 or 8 weeks, the Chiefs are historically one of the worst defenses over the past 4 or 5 years. And then they pick it up around November, December, the months that you mentioned, when it gets down to the playoff push. So I don't think that matters. As long as they're still winning games without Chris Jones, to me, he's losing leverage regardless of how they do it.
Let's move on to another guy who may or may not play for the World Champion Chiefs Thursday night to open the NFL season on KSHP 41, locally, your home of the Chiefs. It's tight end Travis Kelce, who hyperextended his knee during practice on Tuesday. Not much that Andy Reid had to say about it. Said there was some inflammation. They're going to take a look at it. He officially did not practice on Wednesday, the day we were recording this, and is listed as questionable for the game. This can be quick because I know I've seen some of the reports coming out that this is kind of a short-term injury. They don't see this as something that could potentially linger later into the year. Do you think, Mark, it's smart to let Travis Kelce play? I think the only reason that he's listed as questionable is that he's pushing to play. He wants to go out there and play. Do you think it's smart for Kansas City to kind of lean into that 2 days after reportedly hyperextending his knee and play against the Detroit Lions?
Yeah, if it was up to me, I wouldn't let him play at all. I don't care if he looks good doing pregame warmups or not, because after this game, you have 10 days off. So you do have like that half bye week, if you would. And it's game one. Even if you lose this game, it's not the end of the world. And it's the NFC opponent. It's not like you're playing the Bengals or the Bills. This could be maybe seeding implications down the line. Week 2, you do play the Jacksonville Jaguars, who a lot of people are high on, that could be potentially in that 1 to 2 seed race, especially considering how weak their division is. So that's a much more important game. So yeah, I wouldn't risk it. I do think he does want to play, because we have to remember the first banner night a few years ago, it was only 15,000 fans in attendance.
Yeah.
So this is going to be the first time the Arrowhead, the Chiefs Kingdom, can really embrace in Arrowhead the banner being dropped, all the things that come with it, the pregame, the tailgate, and all of that, and have a full 79,000 people in the stands. So I think Travis Kelce really doesn't want to miss that. And we know how he is. He gets fired up. He's very animated. He thrives off those type of environments. So I do agree with you. I think he is the one that's pushing for it. I also do think there's a little bit of mind games here playing within the Chiefs as well.
Absolutely.
Why would you rule him out right now? Give the Lions some extra time to prepare while, you only got 24 hours left. Why not just push this thing to the very, very end? Because obviously he's the number one guy on your game plan from a defensive standpoint. So I think they're still going into this game, going to assume that he's going to play. And if you wait to the last second, he doesn't play, you don't know where the ball's going, especially with all these receivers. I mean, I saw a stat. I think we combine all the receiving room together, all their receptions in their career are still well below Travis Kelce. So you don't know where the ball is going to go if Kelce doesn't play. So I think the Chiefs are also playing some mind games here as well.
Tony Pfizer is rocking with us on Facebook, says Kelce will try and play. He and his brother have started like 250 consecutive games. They have a hard time getting him to sit, which is true. I talked about this with Chris Jones, man. These guys are ultimate competitors. Like, as much as their mind tells them like you're not right, or you don't want to compete, or it's not time to go, or you're not 100%, when it's game time, or when that clock goes and they can feel it in their bones, like they'll do anything they can possibly to get out there and go. But maybe, Mark, just maybe, hear me out on this one, right? Maybe Travis Kelce sitting for the Chiefs in week 1 is actually a blessing in disguise. Maybe it's addition by subtraction. We've spent this entire offseason talking about Chiefs pass catchers. Is Rashee Rice going to be ready? Is Kadarius Toney going to be able to be the wide receiver 1? Is Sky Moore going to take that next step? Is MVS going to be able to finally get on the same page with Patrick Mahomes? Finally, you take Travis Kelce out of that mix. There's no more hiding, right? Like, now in week 1, with the entire NFL world watching after a years long or an offseason long of speculation, they throw him in the deep end of the pool, right? Like, it's sink or swim, right? And as you mentioned, it is week 1 at the end of the day. It's an NFC opponent. If you go out there and lose a tight game, or if you go out there and your rookies like Rashee Rice have a couple more drops, or maybe run the wrong routes, or you're lining up, like maybe you get those reps in a game type environment early in the regular season. Sure, you lose a close one or you win one, and even more, those guys get re-energized. Those guys get the confidence that they need to, hey, those things that we learned in camp, maybe coach was telling the right thing. You know what I mean? Like, just maybe, Travis Kelce at 60% or 65%, which is what I'm guessing he would be at, if he went. Like, even if he does go or gives it a go and tries out pregame and ends up going out there, like, he's not 100%. So maybe Kelsey's sitting at 60% and the rest of your guys knowing, hey, it's on us. There's nobody else walking through that door. Maybe, just maybe, that could be beneficial for the world champs in this game.
Yeah, and a couple names you didn't mention. How about Noah Gray?
Yeah.
There's been talk about who's going to be that successor to Travis Kelce as he gets up there in age. He hasn't missed the game for injury since his rookie year. And, like we said, he's not getting any younger. You have to think about that succession plan, even if he does play another 4 or 5 years, just a guy that can take some snaps away from him, right? To lower his load throughout the regular season so he's fresh come playoff time. Can Noah Gray be that guy? A guy that they drafted a mid-round pick. He was good at Duke. He's shown some flashes here and there. I would love to see him get a full game, man, and see what he can do. And then what about Justin Ross? He's like that hybrid receiver, the one receiver the Chiefs have never had, that big body possession guy, give him a jump ball. Without Kelce there, I think this could be a role for him to slide in, especially in the red zone a little bit more as that big body target. So I'm kind of with you here. I don't think there's no need to force Kelce to play as much as he wants to play. Sometimes you got to hold guys back. Like we saw it in the freaking AFC divisional round with
protect
Patrick
them
Mahomes.
From themselves, man. Sometimes you got to protect them from themselves.
Yeah, we saw the quarterback, and Mahomes didn't want to get out. Man, it was like, no, halftime, right? And that was a playoff game. So I don't think Kelsey's going to play tomorrow.
Let's hop into our Chiefs preview and this one.
Stop it. You can't do this. You can't escape. You can't make these plays. You can't make these throws.
Come on, give us a sneak preview.
Chiefs preview.
It's football, man. For real football. Not preseason football, not training camp scrimmages, but real regular season NFL football, less than 24 hours away. Here from Kansas City. Let's start with the injury report. We obviously touched on Travis Kelce. He's actually the only Chief with an injury designation entering this game, which I thought was very interesting. And there's two names, of course, that jumped out at me right away. Kadarius Toney, who hadn't practiced all of camp up till this week, recovering from that knee surgery, has no designation. The Chiefs listed him as a limited participant on Monday and Tuesday and a full participant on Wednesday, which is noteworthy. And then L'Jarius Sneed, another guy who we had been monitoring his knee as well. I believe there was some rumors that he was maybe holding in, if you will. That's all put to bed this week. He registers 2 LPs and a full participant on Wednesday as well. So no injury designation for those two. I'm skeptical. I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat. Call me yellow light lad. I do not believe these guys are 100% healthy, but I think they're good enough to give it a go. And I think Kadarius Toney will be a guy who will be on more of a snap count than L'Jarius Sneed. Are you looking at either of these guys or anybody else on the injury report kind of headed into kickoff?
Well, I think Kadarius Toney's on a snap count even when he's 100% healthy. I've seen games where he'll play the whole series and then they'll shut him down for the next 2 possessions. Like they pick him in spots. I think that's how you got to use him. I mean, you have to, based on the history of him in the short term in his career so far. And you got so many guys. I don't think you have to push this whole thing. And, we saw it in the offseason about him being wide receiver 1. I don't think either one of us really bought into that fully. So I do think don't raise your eyebrows. I didn't buy into that. Don't do that now. Don't do that. Hey, now.
You were driving a boat on that one, man.
Oh, look, now you're gonna pull some tweets. Let me delete some before you.
I can't wait until KT's breakout.
Oh my gosh! But no, I do think he will be limited, to say the least. You use him in certain packages, some gimmicky plays, some gadgets, maybe a couple reverses and things of that nature. And as far as Sneed, I don't think Sneed's actually going to be on a snap count. I think he's going to be out there his full allotment of time. I think he's good to go. I think they understand how vital he is, especially without Chris Jones. You could argue he's the second most important player on that defensive side of the ball. So I think his leadership will be very, very vital, especially going against this Lions team. They're a high-flying, explosive offense. I mean, they don't have Jameson Williams because he is suspended for the first 6 games, but you still have St. Brown. You got Jahmyr Gibbs, who the rookie, a lot of people are high on. and he's a big threat in the passing game, not just as a running back. I mean, I think a report yesterday. He expects to get 500 receiving yards and 1,000 rushing yards this year. So the rookie's very, very, very confident in his ability to produce at a high level for the Detroit Lions this year.
We're going to the injury report here in the lead up to Chiefs and Lions in week 1. Tony Pfizer again, another good question from Facebook. Is there any chance the Chiefs have 7 active receivers? If not, who's inactive? Got to be Watson or Ross. Now, I would normally say Ross, but in this situation, when we're talking about a game where Travis Kelce, questionable, may not go, may go, I think Ross is actually active in place of Kelce because he fits that Jody Fortson role, if you will, like that goal line. I mean, the fade preseason is pretty much how I expect them to use him in those type situations, right? His size, his athletic ability, matched with the play calling of Andy Reid, makes it extremely tough to match up with him in those situations. I think Ross is up if Kelce's down. If not, maybe it's a guessing game, right? Richie James is another guy who's on the injury report for KC here. I don't know. I think it's going to be a guessing game. I don't know if they have 7 active. What's your gut tell you about that every week?
Not every week, but I think this week they will. I can only one guy I could see potentially not being active, but it's hard for me to say that because they picked him in the second round. That's Rashee Rice.
Yeah.
I don't see a pathway, like you said, for Ross, especially if Kelce's not out there. I think that gives him the leeway to play. They obviously love Justin Watson, even though Chiefs Kingdom does not. So he's going to be one of the guys every single week. So, I think this week they will carry 7 receivers.
Let's transition now to we've been talking about this since ring ceremony, right? We've been talking about this since, I believe, Arizona, since parade day. But tomorrow, Thursday, Lions Chiefs officially begins the Super Bowl title defense. And you can mark up all the cliches now. Target on your back, getting everybody's best shot, run it back tour. Whatever you want to put on this. The Chiefs will raise a banner at GHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium on Thursday. And some of the questions leading up to this week talked about just kind of the undertaking of repeating, the undertaking of going back to back. No team has done it in 20 years. Time flies. I believe the last team that did it was Tom Brady's Patriots in New England.
04 and 05. Yep.
Talked to Justin Reid about it this week at the podium. I asked him, why is it so hard for a team to repeat? This is what he had to say.
Well, the simple answer is that it's freaking hard. You know, it's the NFL. Good teams turn to bad teams quick. Bad teams turn to good teams quick. There's dynamic in how the roster movement happened. It's always a new season, and you got to earn it every year. It's by no means easy, but it's exactly what we aim to do, and that's what we're shooting for.
Mark, the world champion Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl 3 of the last 4 years. What's going to be their most challenging aspect of getting back to the Super Bowl this year and trying to win it again?
I think it's going to be nutrition, staying healthy. I mean, that's very cliche.
Nutrition.
Yeah.
They not eating right?
I mean, hey, just maybe some of them aren't. I don't know. I
too many Big Macs.
Guys have been, passing out Big Macs today. Did you eat a Big Mac today? Did you have one?
I did not eat a Big Mac today.
Oh, okay.
I'm not a Big Mac fan, actually. I prefer, if I'm going to McDonald's, I get a McChicken.
Yeah. That's the safer bet. Yeah, I would agree with that. But
attrition. I
don't know why. See,
you hungry?
Yeah.
It's time for
actually, I am. I'm about to eat right after this podcast. Actually, I'm starving. But yeah, I mean, staying healthy. The last time they went for a title defense, we know what happened with the offensive line against the Bucs. You're missing pretty much your whole line. It was depleted. Mahomes had to run almost 500 yards sideways and backwards. So I think that's the biggest thing, as cliche as it may sound. I think this roster is built. I mean, you had so many rookies contributing last year. They're coming back in year 2. Kramer's funny for that.
We got to clip that one, man.
Oh, man. But, we saw what happened last time. Got banged up. I think the roster's built. You had rookies last year that contributed at a high level. You would expect them to even be better in year 2. I like the rookie class you have this year. You still have your core guys, obviously. Chris Jones will play, like I said, at some point this season. Travis Kelce's going to be fine. You got 15 there. Everything is in place. You know, the AFC is tougher. You got Aaron Rodgers here now. Assuming Lamar can stay healthy this year, the Ravens are going to be really tough. I expect them to be a playoff team. The Bengals are still not going anywhere. The Jags team you beat in the playoffs, they're going to be tougher this year. So I will say that's the obstacle as well. But at the same time, you don't have to play all these teams, especially if you're the 1 seed. Getting the 1 seed, I think, it still matters. I think it's very important because you do get that. You get that first bye. Essentially, you win a game without even have to play. You don't have to win 2 games at home, and it eliminates multiple teams during the wild card weekend. So you only got to play 2 of those teams versus 3 of those teams. So I think it really does matter. So, but attrition is the main thing that the Chiefs have to battle to repeat this year.
You never living that one down. I'm gonna hold you to that one for a while. Mark Gunnels says attrition is his biggest challenge for the Chiefs going back to back. A couple different things. I think the low-hanging fruit here is talking about the pass catchers. You lose so much productivity and familiarity with Patrick Mahomes, with Juju, McCole leaving in this offseason, and these new faces coming in.
You can't say Juju. Juju's only here 1 year.
Yes, but he had familiarity and comfort with Patrick Mahomes when it was down the stretch.
But not prior to the season starting.
But they won the Super Bowl last year, right? We're talking about.
I'm saying, but I can make the argument: the guys that don't have familiarity now will have it by December and January. You can't use Juju as an example.
I don't think that's a given, though. I don't know if that's necessarily a
those
given.
guys were in Texas with him. Come on, Aaron. They spent the whole month in Texas.
And remind me how many defenders were down there in Texas with him. Or were they throwing against
There's a couple ghosts down there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're basically assuming that these new guys or the rookies or Sky Moore or whatever, like you're depending on those guys taking a step on paper. And there's a big difference between taking a step on paper or having familiarity and comfort with Patrick Mahomes or having his trust on paper and having it when the bullets are flying, having it when color is coming across his face, having it when he's on a gimpy ankle. Like those are things, and that to me is the low-hanging fruit. To me, the biggest question mark behind this team is the pass rush, man. Last year, they came out of nowhere and exploded and were second in the league in sacks. I don't think anybody had that coming out of the year they had previously when they couldn't breathe on an opposing quarterback. I mean, we were begging for them to get D-line help. Last year, what was it, 55 that they ended up getting in the regular season?
And then not to mention, a good chunk of those sacks were not from the pass rush because they were blitzing as well.
To me, if they could get a similar type of productivity from their defensive line with I won't say inferior talent, but as of this podcast recording right now, they are not as good of a unit as they were last year. And that's even if Chris Jones walks through that door. Obviously, he's not there right now, which is the easy one. But even if Chris Jones walks in through that door, I don't know if they're as talented as they were defensively last year. You're talking about no Frank Clark. You're talking about no Carlos Dunlap. I'm hoping that George Karlaftis takes the next step, but that's another if and but, trees and nuts. So for me, I'm looking at 2 units as far as helping Kansas City repeat.
Pass catchers. You didn't even mention the first 6 weeks you're going to be without Charles Omenihu as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point there. Charles Omenihu as well. So that defensive line room to me is the key to them getting off the field on third down, getting the ball back in the hands of Patrick Mahomes. If George Karlaftis can show us the first 6 weeks of the season what he showed us the last 6 weeks of last season, I feel a lot better. But I think we'll get some of our answers after this first one, especially with the Lions, a team that likes to throw the ball a lot. I would not be surprised if Jared Goff had over 35 passing attempts.
They have a great offensive line too.
They have dynamic playmakers on the outside at the skills positions. They're an aggressive team too. Remember when we were in that stretch of the time when teams were going for it on fourth down all the time against Kansas City? I would not be surprised if Detroit showed us some of those similar looks tomorrow. And let's just get right into it, right? Like we want to look at the Detroit Lions a little bit. I asked Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes point blank, when you turn on Jared Goff's film, what do you see? Andy Reid didn't say much, which usually means a lot. He says, we've seen him before. We're familiar with him. Obviously, that big blockbuster matchup between the Chiefs and the Rams, where Mahomes had all those turnovers last time, caught his attention. Mahomes said, that stuck with me. more than a lot of other things. You know, he doesn't like when he plays poorly. But for Jared Goff, a guy that's been to Super Bowl, has Super Bowl experience, and Mark, let's be honest, he's had to kind of rebuild his reputation in the league. I think he enters this situation starting off the NFL year against the world champs at their place. He's primed for a breakout, if you ask me.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Will he reverse what he did last year? Because you look at his home and road splits, they were drastically different. He was not the same guy on the road as he was at home. And now, week one, you're going to the loudest venue in the league on banner night. It's going to be rocking. No Chris Jones, maybe no Travis Kelce. So the fan base is going to feel even more on their shoulders to kind of, if you would, help carry the Chiefs through this game. So I'm really looking forward to see how he comes out to start this game because it's going to be rocking there. But I do love the Lions' weapons he has around him. We mentioned St. Brown. I mentioned Jahmyr Gibbs, even David Montgomery. I think that was a good pickup for them as well. He's a touchdown machine. I think that was an upgrade over Jamal Williams, who left them for the Saints, I believe, this offseason. So it's going to be a tough challenge. It's a top 5 offensive line as well. So you're going right into the fire without Chris Jones, going against one of the better units to see if you can generate some resemblance of a pass rush. And if you can, I think that bodes well for how you feel moving forward when Chris Jones does come back, if George Karlaftis does take that next step. What about FAU? We didn't even mention the first rounder, right? You know, it seems like a lot of people are kind of just underselling the fact that he is a first round pick. We kind of expected him.
They're taking the wait and see approach. I don't know if they're underselling it.
Well, I'm talking about more as like the fan base. I think as far as expectations go, and I think now he's going to have to get thrown to the fire quicker than we thought, because obviously with no Chris Jones, but not even no Charles Omenihu, right? And then we expected them to get Carlos Dunlap. We thought that was going to be like a thing, like a layup, right? He's not there. So I don't see who opposite of George Karlaftis you can really play many snaps over Felix right now. So we're going to see a lot from him beginning, I think, tomorrow as well.
Wrote about Jared Goff for arrowheadpride.com. This is available right now, so go read it. Goff finished with 4,438 total passing yards last year, 29 touchdowns, just 7 picks. Detroit was 9-8 last year. Mahomes says he's won everywhere he's been, so I know it's going to be a great challenge for us, no matter if it was with the Rams or with the Lions. He's put up stats, and he's always won games, and that takes something to be able to win whenever everything might not be going perfect, to have something inside of you that says I can still go out there and find a way to win. He's done that his entire career. Isn't Detroit's whole thing like Detroit versus everybody? Like, isn't this game and this situation and like this environment, isn't this setting up perfectly to what Dan Campbell, I mean, I watched a few of his Hard Knocks episodes, and like this just seems to fit in exactly to what, you know, he likes to preach and what he has instilled in those guys. They don't have their best offensive and they don't have their best defensive player, and they're still 4.5 point favorites against us who have a lot of height. I just think I would not be shocked if this was a field goal game, Mark.
See, I see it a little differently. I think it started off that way. This line, the beginning of the summer when it first came out, was at 7. It's gone down 2.5. That's a lot of points. And the home team theoretically gets 3 points automatically, right? So I could say if this was a neutral site game, it's almost a pick 'em, pretty much. So I think it started off as that, where everybody thought the Chiefs were going to win, assuming, you know, home opener, banner night, you know, Chris Jones is not going to miss any games. That's not going to happen. This is back in July, we're talking, right? Travis Kelce, we're not even thinking about an injury at that point. I think the narrative has shifted now, because I think now without Chris Jones, most likely without Travis Kelce, I think the media narrative is it went from the Lions need to just have a good showing. If they lose a close game, it's still a good omen for them moving forward. You was in the doghouse in Arrowhead. It was rocking. You only lost by a field goal. To now, I think they're expected to win. I mean, no Chris Jones, no Travis Kelce.
Expected to win, Mark.
Yes, you're projected to win your division. It's only 4.5. That's only because it started off so high, and the home team gets 3 points anyway. So to me, I'm looking at it, it's almost a pick 'em if it's a neutral site game. So why are you not expected to win? If you're a playoff projected team playing a team without their second and third best player, if I told you any other team was missing their second and third best player and they're playing against a team that's projected to win the division, would you not say that team that's projected to win the division should win that game?
I'm gonna let you just finish up here. Go ahead.
No, that's the question I'm asking you. If there was any team without their second and third best player going against a team that's projected and favorite to win their division, is that team that's projected to win the division not expected to beat that team without two of their top three players?
But Mark Gunnels, there's extenuating circumstances here. We know this is not just any team. This team has Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. They have Andy Reid calling plays.
Mahomes can't do everything by himself before. Don't use that now. He can't.
I said it's not. I said you can't bank on that. I said you can't bank on that. On paper, a lot of things look good on paper. It's a lot of different when you go out there in the gridiron. But I don't know. I don't know if Detroit, still extenuating circumstances, I don't know if Detroit is expected to win this game. I'll push back on that.
But I don't think you can use the Detroit versus everybody thing anymore.
I'm not from Detroit, so I'm not going to speak on that.
You're not? I thought you had ties there.
More ties than you do to Kansas City at this point.
I thought you rolled with T. I thought you rolled with T Grizzly in them, man. I don't know.
Man, let's go to Vegas.
Place your bets.
Oh, there it is. There it is. 2 touchdowns. Win by at least 2.
Let's go to Vegas with Mark.
Oh, he's back.
Yeah. We got a new season, baby. I got a clean record, baby. Let's go.
Just because you have a clean record for this year doesn't mean we forgot about your record from last year, Mark Gunnels. Like, we can go back. The record is there. The receipts are there. We can go back in time and see all of your picks from last season.
It's a new season, baby. Fresh start, baby. Let's get it.
Mark Gunnels has tunneled in on the 2023 regular season. We are just hours away at this point from Chiefs and Lions kicking off from GHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium. As usual, Mark has 3 plays for this game, leading us up. He's giving out winners. Last year, he was close to 500. I'll be honest. I'm not going to give you an exact record out there. I'm not going to put you on Front Street. You were close to 500, which I said at the time, and I'll reiterate it then. It was good. It was fair. You know, I think the best advice for all of our players who listen to this on a weekly basis is to pick one of your 3 plays that you like the most and bet the house on it.
And you know what? Out of my 3 picks I give you, I will tell the public which one is my favorite every single week.
So he's already hedging. He's already hedging his bets, ladies.
No, because we're still gonna keep track of the other 2. We're keeping record of all of it. So
Mark Gunnels is back. He's in Vegas. He's handing out 3 plays for week 1. Mark, what you got for us?
all right, so let's start with the spread here. It's -4.5. Like I mentioned previously, it started at 7 when this first came out in the summertime. I didn't like it there. I would have took Lions +7. That's too many points. And now I think the narrative has changed. I think it's to the point now where the Chiefs are being a little undervalued too much without Chris Jones and maybe without Travis Kelce. I think the Chiefs do win this game. I think they can win it by at least 5 or more points. So I'm taking Chiefs -4.5. I mentioned Jared Goff's road numbers last year. I don't think that changes week 1 going into the most hostile environment he's going to play maybe in his career. He's never played an Arrowhead in his life. So it's going to be a buzzsaw tomorrow night. So give me Chiefs covering the 4.5. This is my favorite play. Sky Moore. I already knew you knew it was going to be my favorite play.
When I saw you feed this one in, I'm like, oh, this is free money. Like, Mark, this is free money for Gunnels.
This will be the lowest you see his receiving yards all season long because the books don't know what to do with them. They don't know what to do with Sky Moore right now. So I'm taking advantage of it. I'm hammering it while it's this low. I think he gets 60 to 70 yards in this game. So I think he's going to blow this number out the park, especially if Travis Kelce doesn't play. I like it even if Kelce does play. So I think this is a tremendous value. I can even see you going to Kansas to placing this bet in. Because you love this too. I can tell by the look on your face.
It's a low number, man. I couldn't believe it. It's a very low number. And you know, in this Chiefs offense, that's like 2 catches potentially. So I absolutely love this play.
Yeah, so this is definitely my favorite play of the week. Sky Moore over on receiving yards at 44.5. Put it in right now. And then my third play is I'm taking the over on Patrick Mahomes' total touchdowns at 2.5. So this would even include if he has a rushing touchdown, just total touchdowns, passing and rushing. I think he throws for 3 in this game. So I think he clears it from just his arm. And we know he's capable of running one in as well. So I think I feel very comfortable here. This Lions defense was one of the worst, especially during the first half of the season last year. They got a lot of moving parts. CJ Gardner-Johnson, Emmanuel Mosley, we didn't mention, he's been ruled out, the corner they got from the 49ers, which is pretty surprising. I think they're still very young. A lot of communication issues could be had here with week 1, moving parts in Arrowhead, a lot of anxiety going on. And we know Andy Reid's going to dial some stuff up. So I feel very comfortable with Mahomes at least having 3 touchdowns tomorrow. So those are my 3 plays. Taking the Chiefs -4.5. My favorite play, Sky Moore over on receiving yards at 44.5. I'm taking Mahomes over on total touchdowns at 2.5. What do you think, Aaron?
It's a clean slate. You're starting good. This smells like a 2-1 week for Mark Gunnels to me, but I like how you're starting. It's not how you start, it's how you finish, but I like how you're starting. Mark Gunnels handing out winners here on Chiefs Coast to Coast. We just previewed Chiefs Lions. We gave you the latest on Travis Kelce. We gave you the latest on Chris Jones. I'm scrolling through the chat now to see if we have any final questions before we get on out of here. Tony Pfizer, been very active today, says don't sleep on Drew Tranquil's blitzing ability either. It adds an element to the pass rush. Hey, I'm excited to see Tranquil go. I mean, this has been one of those ads for the over the offseason where we've been talking about ad nauseum and maybe slipped under the radar nationally. I think he has the potential to be, and Pete Sweeney said this on our air once, he has the potential to be the steal of the offseason for Kansas City when you consider what he brings defensively, especially if he could add to the pass rush. Heck, they need somebody to add to the pass rush at this point, Mark.
Yeah, actually, I think with Tranquil, he's more known for his pass coverage. And I think in this game, you're going to need him there because, like I mentioned before, Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy that can leak out the backfield. They're going to use him a lot in that short intermediate game. And I think Willie Gay is actually the guy that you can see being part of the pass rush from the linebacker position, and Leo Chanel as well. So I think you'll get some juice from those guys when it comes to that. I think Tranquil will be more of the in space and trying to pick off Jared Goff, if you would.
The thing that makes me nervous about your Mahomes play, and we're getting out of here, episode 54, it's been very quiet around the running back room. Ever since the 53 came out, it's like we haven't said much about Pacheco. McKinnon's back, but, we kind of forgot about what he did to close out the regular season. Like, are you scared about Chiefs running backs potentially taking away a touchdown or two from Mahomes' total tomorrow night?
No, because I think there's going to be a lot of points to be had in this game. I think this is a game where the Chiefs score over 30 points. And I don't think if they get 1 or 2, I think that still leaves room for Mahomes to sneak in 3. And I have to mention, we know when the Chiefs get to the goal line, they still do these little like weird plays where it counts as
underneath.
Where it's like really a run, but it counts as a passing touchdown. So I could see Mahomes having one of those where it should be a run play, really, but it still counts as a forward pass. So
that's it for episode 54. As a reminder, we are back on our weekly schedule now, every week previewing the upcoming Chiefs game and recapping last week's Chiefs game. So next episode, September 13th, which is my mom's birthday. If she's listening, happy birthday.
Shout out to Mom.
Happy early birthday. We'll be recapping the Detroit Lions versus the Kansas City Chiefs on that day and previewing Chiefs versus Jaguars week 2 on our next episode 55. Maybe is the Frank Clark episode? Maybe the D Ford episode?
No, not D Ford. Don't say that name on here. Don't say that name.
For Mark Gunnels in LA, Kramer Sandstone behind the board, Aaron Ladd here in KC. Coast to Coast is out of here.